Okay, welcome back. We have another video for year three. This one is going to be about healthy relationships. I really want to try to do healthy relationships overall, but I am probably going to talk more about romantic relationships and just know that a lot of what I'll discuss in regards to healthy relationship can transfer to family relationships, friendships. But I want to do have the conversation, excuse me, about romantic relationships because sometimes after trauma, we have a tendency to seek relationships, seek those bondings. And I think, again, that goes back to a biological drive to bond and feel safe. And sometimes attachment makes you feel safe. Okay, so we're going to consider this video like a part two of healthy relationships. But like I said, most of this video is going to be centered on the romantic relationships because of that biological need to bond with other people and feel that safety, especially after a trauma. So, one of the things I want to make clear is that relationships can be really joyful, but sometimes they can cause us some distress. And when we're unsure about our relationships, as to whether we want to make a big commitment to someone, whether we want to separate, or whether we want to make some other changes in the relationship, it's helpful to take a step back and explore your feelings, right? And for me, when you explore your feelings, it's better. It will better serve you rather when you explore your feelings if you're looking at the facts of the relationship versus what I call fantasy creation. And fantasy creation is something we do as humans. Like we take these ideas of what we wanted in regards to marriage, long term relationships, whatever it is, we have an idea of how we wanted that person to just kind of fit into our lives. And a lot of times we go with that vision without paying attention to the person that we're actually in a relationship with. The example I like to use is I had a friend a long time ago who, when she described the guy that she was dating, like she used all these words about him being just a really great person. But when I actually met him, hmm, it was questionable. And so I didn't see the things that she said. And I feel like I didn't see those things that she said because she was still operating in that relationship, in the fantasy she created of him. Because further along in our friendship, she revealed some of the things that she was struggling with in the relationship, right? So, with any relationship you have, most especially romantic, you want to make sure that you and that person line up, right? Our beliefs, values, and goals, do they align? Are they the same? Our families and social life, do they align? Are they the same? Communication. Not everybody can communicate well, but there are people out here that think that they can communicate expertly and they're really poor communicators. And I'll be honest with you, lots of us communicate and communicate poorly because we weren't taught to communicate effectively. I didn't really understand effective communication until I became a therapist. Another thing is intimacy. What does that look like? Most people um, who discuss intimacy, it means different things for different people. And you have to be aware of what it means to your partner and what it means to you so that you can communicate it to someone else. So we're just going to walk through what that means, what we just said about like what it means to have the same beliefs, values, and goals. That we'll start there. So just for an example, how much do we each prioritize a relationship? If you think it's just important for us to spend a few hours a week together, and I think every day is great, and spending every day with your partner isn't important to you, then that's going to cause a problem. To what degree do we have similar relationship goals, right? If my goal is to be married and your goal is to just kind of have a long-term situationship, we're going to have a problem. How well do we respect each other's differences? To what extent can we be our authentic selves? And so that authentic selves is very important to me because I often tell people, you know, you're in a good relationship if you feel mentally, physically, and emotionally safe. And you can only be, in my opinion, your authentic self if you feel those things. And I will definitely explain that more. Family and social life. To what extent do we have social networks outside the relationship? It is unhealthy for people to be isolated as a couple. That can help breed codependency. So, having friends outside of each other is healthy. Having friends with each other is also healthy, but definitely make some connections outside of your relationship. And it's okay for your partner to be your best friend, but have other friends. If one person is your everything, that's a hard job. That's a hard job. Like when someone builds a house, lots of people who can build a house are well versed at building the frame and other things like that, but they may not be able to do the plumbing and electricity, or vice versa. Um, to what degree do we agree on family and friends' involvement in the relationship? If you want to go and tell your mom and your uncle and everything about what's going on in the relationship, and I am more private, that isn't going to work, right? How much do we agree on time spent together? And I know that seems weird, but again, like I said previously, if you think a couple of hours a week are okay and I need every day, we might not work unless we come up with a healthy compromise. And compromise is difficult for people because I often say, if if there's no middle and one person is getting their way and there's no middle, there's a problem there, especially if the other person is like, you know what, forget it, we'll just do it your way. That's an unhealthy that's just an unhealthy conclusion to something that you probably could have worked out a compromise for. Communication. To what degree can we be honest with one another? That goes back to the mental and emotional safety to me. If I'm worried about how you react to something and I feel like I have to lie because I'm afraid of the fallout, then I don't feel mentally and emotionally safe if I can't be honest, right? How often do we give and receive emotional support? That's important. Like, what does emotional support look like for you? How often do you feel comfortable supporting me in tough times, right? And I know how often sounds funny, but like, there's sometimes people get tired. Like, there's always something going on with you, and I don't feel like supporting you in this. Um, to what extent can we address problems directly? To me, that goes back to mental and emotional safety. If I can't go to you and talk to you and calibrate or recalibrate the relationship, then what are we doing? That feels uncomfortable for me. Like, I can't go to you and say, you know what? Um, you hurt my feelings the other day when like you were just kind of yelling through the hallway because things didn't, pan out the way you expected at dinner. If I can't say that and the person says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, I'll try to respond better next time, but that definitely wasn't directed towards you. And if we can't just kind of have a conversation like that and talk through, like if that person said, I why everything got to be about you, or 2 weeks ago when I did this, I never said anything to you. Like once you get to the tit for tat, that's when you're just kind of running into a problem. Um, how often can we resolve conflict? Resolving conflict is really important when you're in a relationship because you are going to have conflict. You'll have two people in a space, traditionally, excuse me, two people in a space trying to acclimate to one another, trying to figure out, okay, so how do we best navigate this environment together? You know, a lot of times when you're in close proximity and someone is upset about something, sometimes the automatic thought is, oh, they must be upset with me. Because again, you make an assumption, and that will start a problem in the relationship because, people can't communicate effectively. One of the things I tell couples is if you're not in a good mood, before you come home and just kind of wreck the whole house, the environment in the whole house, call ahead or text ahead, like, you know what, I'm at zero today. I just really want to come home and relax. If you had any plans, can we please do them another day? Like, give the person that's in that space with you a heads up so that they won't then allow your mood to shift what's going on with them. How often do we have positive communication? That's to me, that's a really good question because a lot of times um, people don't have those positive communications. They have really negative communications. So, meaning negative communication is most of us only communicate when something is wrong, right? If I need to critique or correct or criticize, I am going to do those things and do them readily. So, the example I like to use with parents is if your kids are in the room and they're completely quiet, not many parents are going to go in there and say, "Oh, good job, buddy. Oh, good job. Um, I just really appreciate how you're quiet, blah, blah, blah." No one's going to do that. You're going to stay in the living room and keep praying that, woof, they're quiet. I'm going to relax. I'm going to take a break and take care of myself. When actually, what you should do is go back there and say, really good job playing by yourself. I'm so happy. You're doing so well. What are you playing? Right? So, with some engagement and some acknowledgement, and that's the same thing with your partner, acknowledging that they're doing something well, acknowledging that you're happy, um, thanking them, saying please, always considering them, and hopefully that you'll get the same thing back. But if you don't, that's a discussion because, hey, I don't feel like I'm getting like that reciprocation that I desire. Um, Parenting is a big deal, but I'll skip over that because we're not at parental age, some of us, so that I won't belabor that point. And so, how compatible are our work life balance? So if my partner feels like they want to work 6 months a year and vacation for the other 6 months, and if I'm a workaholic, there's going to be a problem, right? So am I going to let you live your life and then I'm just going to add myself into your life in that way and just kind of understand? This was on a television show, but I thought this was a really good example of a husband and wife. They had agreed because they were both career driven to live their to continue to be married because they decided somewhere down the road in their marriage they wanted to stay married, but they also wanted to go on their prospective career paths and then come together like when they had large breaks and just be husband and wife. And then they also had a veto of, well, whenever you feel like you want to come home and be a husband, and when you want to come home and be a wife, we'll do that. Again, I know it's fiction, but if it works for somebody in real life, then I think that's a really great thing because it's again respecting people's um their ability to choose what they want for their lives. Um Another is intimacy. So how do we express our affection for one another? How do we express emotional affection if one person is touchy feely and the other one isn't? If if there's a partner that likes to be touched, that likes to be hugged, that likes to be cuddled, and the other partner doesn't, then we have to talk about that. Like, what does that look like? Because my emotional needs won't be met. And once my emotional needs aren't met, then we'll start the assumptions will start, the mind reading, and the next thing I know, I'm distressed because my partner doesn't love me and doesn't understand me and doesn't see me. Um, to what degree do we feel close to one another? All of that is important. When I work with older couples who've been married for a while, their marriage has moved into a partnership. Like, this is my partner in crime. It doesn't feel like your husband. It doesn't feel like your love anymore. It just feels like, hey, this is my homie that I work with, and that we just kind of have kids together. Like, he's cool people versus, oh my goodness, I love my husband. He was so wonderful to me. Like, those connections take work, meaning you have to prioritize each other. You have to make sure you're intentional about what the connection looks like. And meaning, I am not going to just kind of harbor these like negative feelings towards you without communicating. I'm not going to hold you accountable for needs and wants that I haven't communicated. Like, I have clients that are really upset at their partners for not doing things that they expected them to do, but at no point did that partner ever communicated what they needed or wanted from that person, which I think that's unfair. You have to communicate what it is you want and need before you say, well, you should have. No, you can't mind read. Um, so there's this really cool guy on social media that does this thing when he's like red flagging and green flagging people. I think it's the cutest thing. It's like it's so funny, right? So we talked about like what it means to just kind of link up on the relationship front. I went through those just kind of timelines, not timelines. I don't want to call them that, but those tenets of a good relationship, like what it looks like, right? So then we'll go back because I want to talk about sometimes how sometimes in relationships, especially heterosexual relationships, and I'm speaking from that because that's what I understand. That's what I operate under mostly, and I can't speak for the LGBTQIA plus community because I only have a handful of clients that fit into that community for my career. Like, as long as I've been um, a therapist, probably less than 10% of my clients have been a part of that community. So I don't want to speak for them. Um, in heterosexual relationships, I've seen that sometimes people will intentionally and unintentionally gaslight you, meaning they want to move the relationship along quickly. So you don't have enough time to decipher whether your beliefs and values and goals, your family and social life, your communication and intimacy, you don't have time to see if all of that lines up, right? Because the person is going to tell you what they are going to tell you, and you're going to operate in what they say, but not what they do. And then you're going to have that fantasy creation where you've just kind of created this person in your head and you're not paying attention to the person in front of you, right? You're going to not see all of that because they're moving the relationship along so quickly. So, one of the things you always want to do with those relationships is slow them down because, again, I don't think some people will intentionally gaslight you. I think it just happens because sometimes when that initial feeling of, oh my you. That's a dopamine hit. That's chemical happiness, right? Like, it's free. And so people are really going to eat that up, especially since, the social contact is limited. People don't want to make new friends. Folks are dealing with those grade depressions, and it's couched in loneliness. That's what they feel most. So it's like, okay, I found somebody I'm attached to. They seem great. I'm getting all this attention up front. I love it. But you can love it, but slow down so that you can really distinguish whether, okay, am I good here? I think I'm good here. Um, so if people don't show you appreciation, like if they don't respect and value you as a partner and express their gratitude, then that's not a relationship you want to be in. I think it's important. I don't care how long you've been with your partner, to say please and thank you, or to just say, you know what, thank you so much for doing that for me out of the blue. Like, I appreciate you. Like, it was without you, I don't feel like I could have made it through, or I could have completed this without your support, right? Balance. Find happiness in the time spent together and apart. Like, some needs are met outside the relationship. And so I mentioned that previously. You can't be of one another's end all and be all. It becomes very codependent and it's not healthy. And then if the relationship doesn't last, then you've lost your one friend or you've lost your group of friends because you've only attached yourself to that person's friends. Commitment. You're interested in your partner in the relationship. You give the relationship adequate time and energy. And if I didn't say so because I feel like I lost my place, what I'm talking about now are green flags in relationships. So if someone is investing in you, if they're committed to you, if they're giving you time, if they're giving you their energy, if they're investing in a relationship and you don't have to worry about them just giving their time and attention and energy somewhere else, then that's a commitment. If person is telling you they need to go back between you and someone else, or they can't make their mind up between you and someone else, make the decision for them. I hear women all the time mention that, well, I'm just waiting on him to decide. You don't have to wait on him to decide a thing. You decide. You decide that you don't want to sit and wait for him to make a decision. That's my soapbox. Effective communication. Communicate your own needs and wishes while respecting those of others, meaning don't just hold on to things that you want and need because it doesn't fit in with what that person wants or needs, or you don't feel emotionally or mentally safe enough to say that I want you to spend more time with me. I need for you to be more affectionate because that helps me to feel love and appreciated in this relationship. And if you can't say that without some feeling that there may be a consequence, then you may have to consider the relationship as a whole. Empathy. You take your partner's perspective and understanding their feelings, even if you do not always agree. Like, I don't have to agree with you to kind of feel your pain, to understand that that would be hurtful to you, to understand that, okay, I get how you feel, right? I'll support you in that. I don't agree with it, but I'll support you, meaning I'll hug you, I'll hold your hand through it, I'll cuddle you through it. Whatever it is you need, I'll help you. Honesty. Your actions align with your words, and the thoughts and feelings you express are genuine. And so lying is a different thing to me. So the opposite of, the honesty, I'm just going to talk about lying specifically because that to me is a protective behavior. Not all people are liars. Most people learn that if communication becomes uncomfortable and I don't want to get in trouble, my fail safe protective behavior is to lie. Again, that doesn't necessarily make a person a liar, but that is a person that is, when their back is against the wall, they will lie. And so when you express how honesty is important to you, express that I understand people will lie. However, when you feel that way, I still want you to tell the truth because you don't know what the consequences will be, or we don't know how this relationship will move along unless we do that in truth. And so that's communicating and understanding to me, communicating and understanding that you won't be penalized for being honest. Independence. Again, have your own interests and goals separate from your partner. That helps keep you interesting. Like, if you spend all day, every day together, it gets boring. You get boring. After a while, people will just kind of find other interests because, like, this is boring. I'm not really feeling this right now. I want to do something else. Um, Intimacy. It's important to discuss what intimacy looks like for you. For you as a couple, you feel close and connected with your partner physically and emotionally. If you don't feel that, then there's some mental and emotional and physical safety that you need to discuss, right? If your needs and wants aren't being met, then you won't feel intimate and close to your partner. The more disconnected you feel with your partner, the more you'll argue, the more you'll feel like your partner doesn't understand you, and the more you'll argue about little logistical things and not the issues. I hear it in couples counseling all the time. Safety, dot, dot, dot. So, this is the reason why I didn't go into really great detail about the mental and physical emotional safety because it's mentioned here. You respect your partner's boundaries. You feel safe physically, intellectually expressing thoughts, and emotionally expressing feelings. If you don't feel safe, that is not the relationship for you. And to me, safety is paramount. Paramount. All these other things are great. I'm not saying they aren't important. I don't want to convey that. But that safety is important because honestly, I feel like if you don't feel safe, you're not going to do everything else that's on this list. And then self confidence. When you're in a relationship that's healthy, that's loving, that's caring, you will feel confident, right? You've seen relationships where people don't feel safe, right? Where their self esteem has been attacked and their confidence has been attacked. They look severely unhappy in those relationships. It's almost like, to me, akin to that depressed look where people just look really heavy and unhealthy. The self confidence and relationships can be the same, right? So you want to make sure you're aligning yourself with people who are, they just, they understand. They're willing to have a conversation with you about how you want to be loved, what it looks like to be loved by you and by them. And so, one of the things I want to talk about towards the end of this is just there are four styles of communication that I often teach in couples therapy, and they're the four horsemen and their antidotes. And I like to talk about these because I think people also need to understand that some negative things in your relationship needs to be discussed up front. And if you see certain things in relationships in regards to communication, you need to cut that off. You need to just kind of cut tail and run. That's the healthiest thing to do. So criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and walling, these are the four horsemen, right? So they're damaging behaviors that escalate conflict and erode a relationship, right? If left unchecked, the four horsemen solidify themselves in a relationship as a normal part of communication. And you can absolutely tell when people feel like this is a normal part of communication, especially in couples therapy. Like, when you have the first initial sessions, when you see this happening, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys are here, right? And a lot of these, like the four horsemen, will definitely create an unsafe environment for you mentally, physically, and emotionally, right? I'm added physically in there because sometimes with some of these behaviors, a person will be physically abusive, right? So criticism, dealing with problems through harsh, blaming, or hurtful expression of judgment or disapproval. They focus on perceived personal flaws rather than changeable behaviors. And often this is met with defensiveness, right? So I'm going to criticize you. If you have a critique back or you try to defend yourself, then I'm defensive. And we're going back and forth defending. I'm defending myself, you're defending yourself, right? Defensiveness, deflecting responsibility for your own mistakes and behaviors or refusing to accept feedback. If someone can't accept feedback, then that to me is a big red flag because that means you won't understand me. You'll make excuses for your behavior. You'll shift blame and blame me for things that are going wrong in the relationship because you actually don't want to change your behavior. And if you seemingly accept feedback, but you never change anything, that's the same thing. Um, Contempt, you'll definitely see. So these last two that I name, I think you'll see them more in people. I don't want to say more. I think they become more prevalent when the person is physically abusive. So showing anger, disgust, or hostility towards you, towards your partner, excuse me. So using put downs or insults, acting superior to your partner, using a mocking or sarcastic tone. This person, you're not going to feel safe in this environment. You're not going to feel loved or cared for. And you may have to look at making some changes in this relationship. Stonewalling, emotionally withdrawing, shutting down, or going silent during important discussions, right? So often a response to feeling overwhelmed, used to avoid difficult discussions or problems. Underlying problems go unresolved. I will also mention that stonewalling is used by abusers because people who practice coercive control will use silence. And I hate to say this way because it sounds so so human rights protester girl, silence is violence, right? And so that silence, that aggressive silence that abusers walk around in the house with, it's very uncomfortable. It makes the abusee want to make things okay. Um, and it can be just kind of super uncomfortable, right? So when you have, a relationship that's healthy, you and your partner will use like gently start up conversations, right? You'll start up a conversation, telling them like I feel really frustrated with what's been happening between us and I really want to talk things through. You take responsibility for your behavior. Listen, I know when I came in the other day, I was slamming cabinets. I was really moody. Like I really apologize for you, to you. Like you didn't deserve that. And if you're taking responsibility, definitely show remorse and apologize. But I'm one of those people. If you apologize for something, don't do it again. Because if you say I'm sorry and your behavior hasn't changed, what's the purpose? So share fondness and admiration. There's nothing like your partner giving you compliments or showing you affection or recognizing your strengths to make you feel good about who you are and where you are in the relationship. That's really important. And then soothing your partner. So using relaxation techniques to calm down and stay present with your partner. You're going to get into conversations that are frustrating, but if you're using your breathing techniques and just kind of focusing on calming yourself and letting your partner know, like, yeah, I was just triggered by what we're talking about. I need to breathe. I need to meditate for a little while. Can we take a pause and just kind of have this conversation again? So, or start this conversation again. So, I wanted to talk about, again, these things when it comes to relationships because if after a trauma we get into a relationship that will re traumatize us, it takes a very long time for us to feel, to operate. For me, it sets up a pattern of relationships that you repeat over and over again, right? Because some of what we are attracted to in that relationship is patterns from from our childhood if we've seen like really toxic things. Um, but to add the trauma to it, to throw off like that bonding and need for safety, to then those negative patterns that you've seen in relationships, it again will affect you long term. And so take your time, listen to this video. Whenever you get into a relationship and it doesn't seem kosher, go back, listen to the beginning, so you can understand what creates a good foundation in relationships. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.